I can get a guy in trouble for saying that. You remember the first time I was on this show, how fucked up it was at the beginning? Were you even aware of that?
What happened?
So the first time I came on the show, I didn't know you, right? And I didn't know anything about you because I was living in Spain. And Duncan, I'd done Duncan shows. The first time I'd done I didn't know what a podcast was. I came to LA to visit my parents. I had this email from Duncan. I'm a comedian. You want to do a podcast? I'm like, sure. Never met a comedian. Don't know what a podcast is. So I did it, and we had a good time. And after, he's like, I'd love to introduce you to my friend Joe Rogan. I think you guys would get along, and you could do his podcast. I'd never heard of Joe Rogan. Right? And no insult intended. Or I lived in Spain. I did never watch Fear Factor. Your whole thing was happening over here. I didn't know about it. And then I went back to Spain. I was like, okay, Duncan's friend Joe does this podcast in his living room the way Duncan does, I assumed, right? And I went back to Spain, and I was talking to my buddy Voodoo, who's a tattoo artist. And he's like, so how was LA? I was like, yeah, cool. I did a podcast with this comedian. It was really fun and interesting. And he's like, oh, you should do Joe Rogan's podcast. I'm like, dude, how do you know Duncan's friend Joe? Right? It was this whole weird thing. He's like, no, dude, Joe Rogan's. So I tried to tell you that story the first time I came. And the point of the story is I'm an idiot. I don't know what's going on, right? I'm oblivious. But we got to the point where I said I didn't know you. And you were like, so what'd you do? Google me? And I was like, well, not really. And then we had to do a sound check, or you had to do an ad or something. And the story got interrupted. And I felt like you thought I was trying to diss you or something.
Yeah, I definitely didn't.
Yeah. Well, I was paranoid. Then you lit up a joint. And you passed the joint around.
Paranoia.
And I'm like, fuck, if I don't hit this joint, then I'm confirmed asshole here. So I hit the joint even though I hadn't smoked any weed in months. And it was this like California weed. I'm holding, literally, I remember, I'm holding the bottom of my chair, trying not to fall out of the chair. And we start talking, and I'm telling the story about a dude that I'd met on an airplane. And he was super into Sex at Dawn, and then we were going to do a movie together and whatever. And then his wife like took the book away from him.
Yeah.
Do you remember all that?
Yeah.
And then I was just like, oh, fuck, I shouldn't have told that story.